Many thousands of years ago, people came to live in Mexico. They hunted animals and gathered plants to eat. Later, they learned to grow corn, beans, and squash. When people started farming, they built villages and towns. Life became easier because they had more food. Around 1500 BCE, the Olmec people created the first big civilization in Mexico. They lived near the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. The land was good for farming because it had rich soil and many rivers. The Olmec built large cities with big earth pyramids and open plazas. They created art and beautiful objects from stone and jade. The Olmec are famous for making giant stone heads. Some of these heads were very heavy, weighing up to 50 tons. People think these heads showed important Olmec rulers or leaders. The Olmec also created a ball game that later civilizations played too. This game was very important in their religion. The Olmec people traded with other groups far away. They sent obsidian, jade, and pottery to distant places. Through trade, the Olmec shared their ideas and culture with others. Many later civilizations learned from the Olmec. The Maya and Aztec people used Olmec ideas for building, art, and religion. Around 400 BCE, Olmec civilization began to disappear. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe the weather changed, or maybe there were problems in their society. But the Olmec left an important gift. They showed future Mexican people how to build great cities and create beautiful art. After the Olmec, other civilizations grew strong in Mexico. Two important groups were the Maya and the Zapotec. Both built amazing cities and developed their own cultures. They made many discoveries in science and art. The Zapotec people lived in the valleys of Oaxaca. Their civilization started around 600 BCE. They built their main city at Monte Alban on top of a mountain. This city had large stone buildings, plazas, and ball courts. The Zapotec created the first writing system in Mexico. They also made the first calendar in the region. They worshipped many gods, and their main god was Cosijo, the god of lightning and rain. The Maya civilization became very powerful between 300 and 900 CE. They lived in southern Mexico and Central America. The Maya built huge cities with tall stone pyramids and beautiful palaces. Their cities included Palenque, Chichen Itza, and Uxmal. Each city had its own ruler. The Maya were excellent mathematicians and astronomers. They studied the stars and planets carefully. They created a very accurate calendar. The Maya also developed a complex writing system using pictures and symbols. They wrote on stone and in books made from tree bark. Both the Maya and Zapotec were skilled farmers. They grew corn, beans, squash, and cacao. Cacao beans were very valuable and sometimes used as money. These civilizations traded goods over long distances. They created beautiful pottery, jewelry, and cloth. Their art and buildings still amaze people today. These cultures left an important mark on Mexican history. The Aztec people came to central Mexico in the 1300s. They were looking for a place to build their city. According to their legend, they would find the right place when they saw an eagle sitting on a cactus eating a snake. They saw this sign on an island in Lake Texcoco. There they built their great city called Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan became one of the largest cities in the world. The Aztecs built amazing buildings, pyramids, and temples. They made roads called causeways to connect their island city to the land. They created floating gardens called chinampas to grow food. The city had markets, schools, and beautiful palaces. Clean water came to the city through special pipes called aqueducts. The Aztecs were powerful warriors. They conquered many other groups and built a large empire. The conquered people had to pay tribute to the Aztecs. Tribute included food, cloth, gold, and other valuable things. This made the Aztecs very rich and powerful. Religion was very important to the Aztecs. They worshipped many gods. Their main god was Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun. The Aztecs believed they needed to make sacrifices to keep the gods happy and the sun moving across the sky. They built tall pyramids as temples for their gods. The Aztec emperor was called the Huitzilopochtli. He was very powerful and lived in a grand palace. Moctezuma II was emperor when Spanish soldiers arrived in 1519. The Aztec Empire was at its strongest then, but big changes were coming soon. In 1519, Spanish conquistadors arrived in Mexico. They came from Spain looking for gold and new lands. Their leader was Hernán Cortés. He had about 600 soldiers with him. The Aztecs had never seen Spanish people, horses, or guns before. These new things frightened many Aztec people. Cortés sailed to the coast and founded the city of Veracruz. On his way to Tenochtitlan, he met different indigenous groups. Some of these groups hated the Aztecs because they had to pay heavy tribute. The Tlaxcalans became important allies of the Spanish. They wanted to defeat the Aztecs. A woman named Malinche helped Cortés because she could speak both Nahuatl and Maya languages. In November 1519, Cortés and his army reached Tenochtitlan. Emperor Moctezuma II welcomed them with great honors, but the Spanish took Moctezuma prisoner. Tensions grew between the Spanish and the Aztecs. In 1520, the Spanish killed many Aztec people during a religious festival. The angry Aztecs attacked the Spanish and forced them to leave the city. Many Spanish soldiers died that night. Cortés retreated to Tlaxcala to rest and plan. He gathered more indigenous allies. In May 1521, he returned with a large army and surrounded Tenochtitlan. The siege lasted 93 days. The Aztecs fought bravely, but they were weakened by hunger and disease. The Spanish had also brought smallpox, which killed many Aztec people. On August 13th, 1521, the Spanish captured Tenochtitlan. The last Aztec emperor, Cuauhtémoc, was taken prisoner. The great Aztec Empire had fallen. This marked the beginning of Spanish rule in Mexico. After conquering the Aztec Empire, Spain ruled Mexico for 300 years. The Spanish called their new territory New Spain. They built their capital, Mexico City, on the ruins of Tenochtitlan. A viceroy, chosen by the Spanish king, governed the land. The colonial period lasted from 1521 to 1821. The Spanish wanted wealth from their new colony. They found huge amounts of silver in the mountains. Mining became very important. Silver from Mexico made Spain one of the richest countries in Europe. The Spanish also started large farms called haciendas. They grew sugar, cacao, and other crops. The Spanish forced indigenous people to work in mines and on farms. Many indigenous people died from hard work and cruel treatment. European diseases like smallpox, measles, and typhus killed millions more. The indigenous population dropped from about 20 million to less than 2 million by 1600. New groups of people emerged during this time. Spaniards born in Spain were called peninsulars. Spaniards born in Mexico were called criollos. Children of Spanish and indigenous parents were called mestizos. This mixing created a diverse population with a strict social hierarchy. Peninsulars had the most power and privileges. The Catholic Church became very powerful in New Spain. Priests and missionaries tried to convert all indigenous people to Christianity. They built many churches and monasteries. The church also owned large amounts of land and became very wealthy. Education was controlled by the church. Life in colonial Mexico was difficult for most people. The Spanish controlled the government, economy, and religion. But over time, people born in Mexico began wanting freedom and control over their own land. By 1810, many people in Mexico were unhappy with Spanish rule. The criollos wanted more power, and poor people wanted better lives. Events in Europe gave Mexicans hope. Spain was weak because France had invaded it. Many Mexicans decided it was time to fight for independence. On September 16, 1810, a priest named Miguel Hidalgo made a famous speech in the town of Dolores. This speech is called the Grito de Dolores, or Cry of Dolores. Hidalgo called on people to rebel against bad government and fight for their rights. Thousands of poor farmers and miners joined him. They marched toward Mexico City with a large but poorly trained army. Hidalgo's army won some early battles and captured several towns. They reached the outskirts of Mexico City, but Hidalgo decided to retreat. Nobody knows exactly why he made this decision. This retreat was a big mistake. Royal Spanish forces attacked and defeated Hidalgo's army. In 1811, Hidalgo was captured and executed, but his call for independence did not die. Other leaders continued to fight. Father José María Morelos led rebels in the South. He was more organized than Hidalgo. Morelos won several battles, but was captured and executed in 1815. The fight became small guerrilla battles. Vicente Guerrero kept fighting in the mountains. Finally, in 1821, a military officer named Agustin de Iturbide joined the independence movement. He created the Plan of Iguala, which promised independence, equality, and the Catholic religion. Many people supported this plan. On August 24th, 1821, Spain signed the Treaty of Cordoba, recognizing Mexican independence. Mexico was finally free after 300 years of Spanish rule. After independence in 1821, Mexico faced many problems. Different groups fought for power. Agustin de Iturbide declared himself emperor in 1822, but people forced him out in 1823. Mexico became a republic. The new nation struggled to create a stable government. There were many changes in leadership. During these early years, Mexico's territory was very large. It included what is now the southwestern United States. But Mexico's government was weak and had little control over these distant lands. American settlers began moving into Mexican Texas. By the 1830s, more Americans and Mexicans lived there. Tensions grew between Mexican authorities and American settlers. In 1836, Texas declared independence from Mexico after winning the Battle of San Jacinto. Mexico never accepted this loss and refused to recognize Texas as independent. Relations between Mexico and the United States became very bad. In 1846, war broke out between Mexico and the United States. American forces were stronger and better equipped. They invaded Mexico from the north and from the sea. American troops captured Mexico City in September 1847. The Mexican army fought bravely, but could not stop the invasion. The war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in February 1848. This treaty was painful for Mexico. Mexico lost 55% of its territory. The United States took California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona and New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. The United States paid Mexico $15 million, but this did not heal the wound. Mexico was much smaller and weaker. The Mexican people felt deep sadness about this huge loss of land. After losing the war with America, Mexico needed to rebuild. Two groups fought for control: conservatives and liberals. Conservatives wanted to keep the old ways and protect the Catholic Church's power. Liberals wanted change and a modern government. This conflict led to another civil war. The Reform War lasted from 1858 to 1861. The liberal leader was Benito Juarez, a lawyer from Oaxaca. He was the first indigenous president of Mexico. Juarez created new laws to reduce the church's power. The Ley Juarez ended special privileges for priests and soldiers. The Ley Lerdo forced the church to sell its lands. A new constitution in 1857 gave people more rights and freedoms. The liberals won the Reform War in 1861, but Mexico was broke from years of fighting. Juarez stopped paying foreign debts. This made European countries angry. France, Britain, and Spain sent troops to Mexico to collect their money. Britain and Spain soon left, but France stayed. Napoleon III of France wanted to build a French empire in Mexico. French troops invaded and captured Mexico City in 1863. The French brought an Austrian prince named Maximilian to be Emperor of Mexico. He arrived in 1864 with his wife Carlotta. Maximilian tried to be a good ruler, but most Mexicans did not want a foreign emperor. Juarez and his supporters kept fighting. The United States supported Juarez and told France to leave. In 1866, France withdrew its soldiers. Without French support, Maximilian's empire fell. He was captured and executed in June 1867. Juarez returned to power and continued his reforms until his death in 1872. In 1876, General Porfirio Diaz took power through a military revolt. He had been a war hero who fought against the French. Diaz would rule Mexico for 35 years, from 1876 to 1911. This period is called the Porfiriato. It was a time of peace but also dictatorship. Diaz brought order to Mexico after decades of war. He created a strong central government. He built railroads, telegraph lines, and modern factories. Foreign companies invested money in Mexican mines and oil fields. Cities grew larger and more modern. Mexico City got electric lights and new buildings. The economy grew and Mexico looked more modern, but this progress came at a high cost. Diaz used the police and army to control people. He limited freedom of speech and press. Elections were not fair. Diaz and his friends became very rich, while most Mexicans stayed poor. Rich landowners took land from indigenous villages. By 1910, just 1% of families owned almost all the land. Poor farmers lost their land and had to work on big haciendas for very low pay. Factory workers had terrible conditions and no rights. Indigenous communities suffered greatly. The gap between rich and poor became huge. Only a small group of wealthy people enjoyed the benefits of progress. By 1910, many Mexicans were angry. Young people wanted change. Workers and peasants wanted justice. When Diaz announced he would run for president again, a wealthy reformer named Francisco Madero challenged him. Diaz put Madero in jail and claimed victory in a fraudulent election. This sparked a revolution that would change Mexico forever. In November 1910, Francisco Madero called for armed rebellion against Diaz. People across Mexico responded. In the north, Pancho Villa led revolutionary forces. In the south, Emiliano Zapata fought for land reform. These leaders gathered armies of farmers and workers. They fought to end the dictatorship and win justice for poor people. Diaz resigned in May 1911 and went into exile. Madero became president and promised reforms. But change came too slowly for many people. Different revolutionary groups had different goals. Some wanted land reform immediately. Others wanted worker rights. Fighting continued between various factions. In 1913, General Victoriano Huerta betrayed and murdered Madero. This started more violence. Revolutionary leaders like Venustiano Carranza, Zapata, and Villa fought against Huerta. They also fought each other. The revolution became a long and bloody civil war. About 1 million people died during this period. Finally, the revolutionaries wrote a new constitution in 1917. This constitution was very important. It gave workers a right to organize and strike. It limited working hours and established minimum wages. It promised to return stolen land to villages and indigenous communities. It reduced the Catholic Church's power. The Constitution of 1917 still governs Mexico today. In 1929, revolutionary leaders created a political party called the PRI. This party controlled Mexico for 71 years. The PRI brought stability, but also corruption. Finally, in 2000, Mexico elected a president from a different party. Today, Mexico is a democracy with a growing economy, but the country still faces challenges from poverty, inequality, and violence. The Mexican people continue working to build a better future.